While we are thankful of how the situation is today, no students, no teachers, no principals, everyone is safe. It's hard to imagine this type of storm with this type of magnitude, with this type of punch that came like a thief in the night and took so much from so many, if it were to happen 8 to 12 hours earlier. And for that, we're forever grateful that we do not have a loss of life in these storms involving anyone within our district. Others in the mid-state were not so lucky. And to offer our respects in that area, I'm going to bring up our school board chairman, Mr. Larry Tomlinson, and we pay our respects to those throughout the mid-state who were deeply, deeply affected by these storms. Mr. Tomlinson.
Before we do this, I want to recognize we have our board members here. Mr. McNeese is here, Mr. Bill Robinson, Mr. Mike Waltney, Mr. Chad Carl, Mr. Kim McGee. If y'all would stand, please. The ones of you here. Where's Mr. Robinson? I know he's here. There he is, back in the back. I want to thank them for being here today, and I want to just sort of say a little bit about what Bart just touched on here about how that, what kind of effect this has had. A lot of our attention has been focused on our two schools here at Stoner Creek and West Wilson Middle. Also, they're the only two schools that we have that were affected by this tornado. But there's also a lot of damage that maybe has been overlooked in the eastern end of the county around the Tucker's Crossroads area. That school wasn't impacted, but we have a lot of children that was affected by that storm. Also Southside. A lot of the kids in the Southside zone live down in the Stonebridge area around 109, and they have been affected and they've been displaced, so we want to remember them too. And the special school district, Lebanon Special School, a lot of damage there on the southwest side of Lebanon, around the airport, Castle Heights Avenue area, Tater Peter Road. So a lot of damage in a lot of places in Wilson County, but nothing to the magnitude of what we saw as far as the loss of life that we colleagues up in Putnam County experienced. So I want to thank Dr. Wright and her staff, all of our maintenance people, our sheriff's office, Lebanon Police Department, WEMA, for the quick response that they had. They were on the ground running as soon as this thing was taking place. I have some of our county commissioners here this morning, Ms. Robinson, Ms. Stafford, Ms. Patton, and Ms. Lauren Brees. If y'all would stand, they've offered a lot of assistance to us. They will be working with us. The county commission will be in the next weeks and months and years ahead to make sure that we all get through with this. Thank all the parents and the teachers for being here today. And at this time, I would like for us to have a moment of silence, reflecting on the people that have been displaced, the ones that made the ultimate sacrifice with the loss of life. And I would ask you also, as we're having this moment, to reflect on a time of asking for patience, for understanding, and just be thankful that what happened to us could have been, and realizing it could have been a lot worse than it was, and be so thankful that we didn't have children and teachers and administrative staff in those buildings, and that we weren't on the road transporting kids, and the people wasn't going back and forth from work to home. That, you know, there's a lot to be thankful for in our community today. And I want us to reflect on that. And I also want to say this much. I want to say before we close with this, I want to thank all the agencies or departments of the Wilson County Schools for helping put this plan together. And I'm like you all, I'm anxious to hear exactly what was going to happen. But this has been a coordinated effort between transportation, food service, the daycare folks, and everybody has been together working on this plan. I guess Dr. Wright for what, 3 or 4 days now. Well, finally, the final plans, I think, were put together maybe yesterday afternoon late. But this time, let's just have a moment of silence and think about the blessings that we have got. Thank you.
Good morning. This has been a time of really looking at the last 3.5 to 4 days as far as what we would do and how we would move forward. And I know that our chair asked for patience and understanding. No one is trained or prepared for this kind of emergency. And in getting prepared just to stand in front of you this morning, I look for words. And those that you know me well, I'm usually not at a loss for words. And I had compiled pages of notes, and I scrapped them. Because where I've turned to right now is to Psalms 57, verse 1 and 2. Be merciful to me, O God, be merciful to me, for in you my soul takes refuge. In the shadow of your wings I will take refuge till the storms of destruction pass by. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost is what we are facing today. And there's going to be a lot of questions as we roll through this. And as we get started, you'll have information. We'll have a link provided that questions will come to mind that you needed to ask, wanted to ask. And so there's going to be a place where not only can you submit your questions, we're going to answer every single one of them. And then we will post our responses where everyone can see them too. So we won't have multiplication and replication of some of the same questions. And there will also be some that will be very singular, very individual, that you need to have a response or an answer to. And I'm hoping that with all that we have been working through, that we have anticipated every concern, worry, things that have caused anxiety, and really debilitating, almost paralysis as far as what many of you have dealt with in the last 4 to 5 days. Life is going to be different for a while, and that's something I want to stress right now, and it is going to be up to the adults to make this time for our children as easy and as stress-free as possible. But the thing we also have to be concerned is also about our adults, our staff members, our families. If we look at just the magnitude between West Wilson, Stoner Creek, we had in excess of 1,700 students and staff members in less than a quarter of a mile apart. And I say that just so, again, you've seen the pictures as they're scrolling through here that gives you an idea, a snapshot of what took place. But the thing I want to make sure as we roll this out, right now we are in a stage, and it's almost like as you could look at the stages of grief. We're in shock, we're in awe. But that will soon turn to anger, which will roll into inconveniences. And I want to put that out there right now. And then I want to make sure that it's understood that had this been 12 hours earlier, we would have experienced fatalities. We can build buildings, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot replace our kids, our teachers, and that's the thing that we've got to keep focused first and foremost. So again, life is going to be different for a while. There's been all kinds of suggestions and recommendations on what we need to do. In fact, we were getting suggestions within 14 hours of the storm. Some were with good intent, trying to help us. One was that we needed to sort and distribute our children across the district where we had capacity in schools. Well, we're not dealing with apples, oranges, and cantaloupes. We do not sort and distribute. So I thanked them. It was also suggested that we have warehouses and office space that we could create into schools. Thanked him again. There was also the offer as far as would we consider maybe the Kmart that's just been vacated over on West Main. No. And I say this not to make light of anything, but just in a short period of time what we were trying to do to make sure that we had not only a good plan, but to make sure that our children could come back to a normal pace of what they had left a little over a week ago. What we also know, we cannot separate our children from their teachers. Last Thursday evening at Providence Church, after the service, several of you, some of the families with their children, came up to talk to me afterwards. And one precious little girl wanted to let me know that she'd taken a book home with her learning book. And that I had read to her in her class the day before at Stoner Creek. She said, but I didn't get the rest of my books. So, honey, that's okay, sweetheart. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But here's what stood in my mind. Will Miss Hamilton still be my teacher? Is Megan in here? Okay. Megan Hamilton. And I said, Precious, Miss Hamilton is your teacher and will be your teacher. That right there sort of sealed what we're about to roll out. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know you're going to shoot holes in it. That's just human nature. I know that as the shock wears off when we move into anger, then it's an inconvenience. And for those that are watching this at home, please keep in mind, we've got to keep what's important in front of us. Inconvenience is for a short period of time. We can make this work. We've looked at every element that we could possibly think of to make sure it's coordinated well. There will be some gaps, but we think we're fairly nimble and flexible to make it work. And as we start this plan, here's another thing I want to put out there. A big tension and worry that particularly for parents and also staff members is before and after school care. And I'm saying this sort of jumping ahead, but I want you to, because as you see this, you're going to start asking and thinking these questions in your mind. There will be no unanticipated budget concerns for teachers or parents about what are we going to do about our kids. No expense, none. So put that over here as you see this plan, and you'll understand why in a minute. But that will be the first thing that comes to mind. And parents that are at home watching this, we understand the tension and the anxiety that you're under right now as well. So with that, we're going to introduce to you the plan that we have formulated: transportation, food services, special education to make sure that we meet the needs of our students, and all the little ancillary. And one more thing that I had some requests from children: spring sports are on. That doesn't change either. So, and again, you'll have a place as far as questions, and if you have something, just keep them there, because again, it's not going to be off the floor. We're going to compile all of them so everyone has the opportunity to share their questions. We'll respond to every single one of them. So again, you'll have that opportunity. So as we go through here, Mr. Hall is going to walk through the operational side of it, and if you'll bear with us, we tend to work together, so I'm not being rude if I interrupt him. He's used to it, and he'll get over it anyway. So, but the thing is, I want to internalize what all the pieces are, and with your help and your prayers, this will work, folks. This will work. Mr. Hall.
Sorry, I'm going to do this because some folks on the streaming side's having trouble hearing, so I'm going to pick this up. First thing for the staff and the students at these two schools, one of our primary concerns was to keep everyone together. That was our number one priority, and believe it or not, Dr. Wright and I were actually talking about 1:30 a.m. Tuesday morning, starting this process, when we first got the reports from the Mount Juliet Police Department. So we've been working on this. We had to put a lot of things in order from the standpoint of, we asked everyone to wait until no later than Tuesday of this week, and we would get answers out. Folks, we have a big operation, and we had to put pieces in place, and one of the first pieces was transportation. We had to make sure transportation worked from a scheduling standpoint, but also we could get kids to and from school without any additional drivers. So that was a big hurdle we had to go through first. So my first challenge was to our transportation staff, who have pulled off an amazing event here to make this process work. So if all of our bus drivers are in here, we're going to thank you. Well, we probably don't have bus drivers because they're meeting right now learning what they're going to be doing come Monday. So, but Jerry Partlow and Penny French and Teresa Pomeroy have worked tirelessly on this as well. First thing we're going to roll out, we're going to run two schools in one, and we're going to have a morning shift and an afternoon shift. They're going to be 4-hour blocks of window for each school, for both the elementary side and the middle school side. If you've been in this end of the county for any length of time, this has happened before. It's happened at Lakeview, and it also happened at Mount Juliet Elementary. This will work. Again, you're just having a 4-hour window of opportunity to work. The times, can you flip that? For Springdale and Stoner Creek will be the first. We're going to house Stoner Creek at Springdale. And the Stoner Creek Elementary time will be 6:45 to 10:45, and Springdale Elementary will be noon to 4. Now there is a short transition in between there, and again, this is going to come down for patience from our parents, because it's a short window of time to let one school go and bring another school in. We met Friday with administrators. We have 4 top-notch administrators here that's going to pull this together and work with you as a staff. They've been meeting all weekend to make sure the assignments and everything worked out. The next slide for West Wilson and Mount Juliet Middle. Mount Juliet Middle will be 8 to noon. These slides, this whole presentation is going to be available after this event on our website. West Wilson will be from 1 to 5. Again, Dr. Angle and Ms. Smith have been working on this all weekend, along with Ms. Smith for Stoner Creek and then Ms. Miller at Springdale. They have been meeting to work a lot of these details out as far as who's sharing rooms, how that's going to work. And so as we go through here, we'll have further updates for the parents as we go through here. One of the big issues we have is, again, with our buses, so we're going to spend quite a bit of time just explaining some things that's going to go on buses, but we'll be through different pieces. We will be bringing some transfer buses out of Wilson Central, so some buses at Wilson Central, they won't have all their buses. We will transfer kids up to Home Goods or Academy Sports, because we still have a lot of folks that live in that area, and so we'll transfer kids there, and then they'll get on their regular bus and go home. We will work with Wilson Central on that. Some of the high school students that are in the work-based learning program, transportation will be talking with them and adjusting schedules as needed with the least impact for those particular students. The others say there's some things that will go on with the school staff. Because of the short turnaround with transportation, where the school staff in the offices will have to watch their buses, radios a lot closer, and listen a lot closer to help us transfer students around. And then, particularly in the middle schools, because we have a shorter day, teachers, we will probably be asking some of you all to help ride some of our buses because we need to get the kids home and get them back. And so be ready for that. The one thing for these 4 affected schools, and we'll touch on this at the end for daycare, where we've been able to take some kids from either school to another school, we will no longer be able to do that because we need our buses. So but we've got a plan for that at the end, and we'll tell you what that is here in a second. For our parents who may be displaced and ride buses, there's a pass that the offices, each school office has, that if your kid is now on a different route, we're going to work through that the best way we can. For these 4 schools, we don't normally make a practice of dropping off at daycares. Due to the shortened day, again, this pass will be used, and we will allow, if we have room on the bus, to take your child to that daycare spot. And there'll be a pass in the offices for that. And then we'll have contact information on this PowerPoint for transportation so you can get a hold of them if you have any questions about an alternate drop-off. The next one is district-wide. And I see a lot of our other principals around here. We want to do a shout out to all of our schools because they have been gracious and great in offering any assistance to make this project work for our kids. And so we want to say thank you to all of our administrators. But this particular point affects all schools. Unless it's a required TSSAA event or a required academic event, all field trips for the last 9 weeks will not occur because the majority of our field trip drivers are in these midday runs now. The Career Day and Special Olympics, we will do that event, those 2 events, but we have already talked to the folks that put on Farm Day. That will not occur. If there's a trip that has been reserved, it's been our policy not to do refunds. We will work with the schools on refunds for that, for parents on trips that have already occurred. For our exceptional children, we have a 3, 4, and 5-year-old program at some schools that are right now are 3 hours a day. They're just going to be 4 hours a day now. So they get an extra hour, and we needed to do that again to make our buses work. The classes at Springdale and Stoner Creek, anything related to exceptional children will occur just like normal. They're just going to be in a different building for Stoner Creek and West Wilson.
And let me add on that too, again, because the first thing that comes to mind, will services remain the same? Absolutely. There are no changes. Okay, that's not a concern. We take care of the kids, and if you'll notice, we're gaining an extra hour for that pre-K student. So keep that in mind as well.
The next part for us, what some folks, we've talked about the 2 schools, but we have actually probably lost our bus shop that sits between these 2 schools. We had all 45 buses sitting on that lot were damaged in some form or the other. Our mechanics have been working through, I have given them the challenge that they will have all buses up and running by Friday. We have a company coming in, they sustained something from the stop sign bent to the roof hatches gone, the windows gone. And so when those windows explode, they explode all over the bus. So we've been cleaning buses. So we will be asking some of the schools that we will disperse the 45 buses. All buses will be up and running before Monday the 16th, thanks to our mechanics. So some schools may share in that, and then we also may have we're working with our fueling people because our fuel depot took a hit, and working on temporary tanks to roll out as well. So we will probably be volunteering a couple of schools for fuel tanks until we can get our other bus shop back up. For folks in neighborhoods that have been affected, as you know, there's a ton of construction and reconstruction that will be occurring over the next several months to a year. We will have to work on stops for our buses because our buses cannot get in to some of these areas. As the areas open up and they get houses rebuilt and more streets open, more stops will be added. As of in the morning, Tuesday morning, well, it should be open sometime tonight, but all the new bus times for these 4 schools will be on our website. If you go to the routing site, type in your address, it's going to give you the new route times, the new bus times for bus routes. The biggest difference will be the construction zones, and we'll work with those homeowner associations or whoever's doing the construction. And as roads open up, transportation will go deeper into those neighborhoods as we can get there.
Add something here too. We know many of the obvious, subdivisions and developments, Triple Crown, and areas that really have seen terrible destruction. If there is an area that you think that might have been overlooked or something like that, please get the information to us, because we have also been zigzagging, driving through best we can to see the neighborhoods that might have been impacted but have not been, either on the news or brought to our attention. So if there's something that you think there might be an area that we've overlooked, please send that information to us, because we are double checking. That's what we've also been doing for the last 2 or 3 days as well, to make sure we do not lose anyone.
We will be putting links up on this, but for the Stoner Creek parents who are used to that traffic pattern at that school, you will now have to use Springdale's traffic pattern. And so that link for their traffic pattern should be up sometime this afternoon. This PowerPoint, along with all the links that we're talking about, will be together. Mr. Barker and Mr. Peach are working on that. So as we get information from the schools with traffic patterns, that'll be on there. West Wilson and Mount Juliet Middle, there'll be a new traffic pattern for both schools to pull this off, because we have 1 hour to empty a school and bring another school in. So there'll be a new traffic pattern for them that we will work with Dr. Angle and get that drawn up and get that on the website, hopefully by tomorrow. The parents at LZ Patton, even though that school was not infected by the storm, is now, we're asking them not to show up until 1:30, because we're opening the last middle school at 1. And I don't mean to sort of sound funny, but we have some folks that show up at noon to pick up their kids, so we need them to wait till 1:30 before they show up, because we're going to have all of our buses coming through for 2 schools. So we will work with Ms. Wilma at LZ Patton to get that going. We will also have additional crossing guards and staff, especially the first week, to make sure this happens correctly. So again, we're asking for parents' patience, because if you've tried to get around our county since last Monday, you're frustrated. You'll be frustrated next week. Please be patient. Give it a day or 2 and it'll work itself out.
And I'm going to say give it a week or so. Think of the first week of school anywhere, multiply it by 10, and that's what because again, old habits are going to be hard to move, so we need not only staff assistance as far as getting that message out, but parents that are listening right now, please pay attention to what we're having to do as far as rerouting. There is a reason behind it. And again, it's because the traffic concern is going to be evident already. We need your help and assistance to follow what we're setting up.
Flipping over to food service, what we're going to be doing with food service is there will be a select menu the first week, because we had to place orders Friday to be here for next Monday, the 16th. So there will be a meal prepared for all the kids, and it'll be dropped off about 35 minutes before they leave. And at the end of the day, the principals will work with their staff on how this is going to work, but it will be dropped off in their classroom for them to eat before they get on the bus. And for the group coming in the second shift, they will get it at the beginning of their school. And then at the end or beginning, we'll have a snack breakfast for that. And one of the things we're working on with some of the companies that have approached us is we're doing our best to try to get the breakfast part of this program paid for from a company donation, so you would be responsible for lunch. But it works just like normal. You'll have your, if you have free and reduced tickets, or you're paying, or parents are sending money in, your lunch program is going to work the same. The first week, as far as a beverage is concerned, will be water with the meal. The second week, we're changing that over back to chocolate milk. We just didn't know what we were doing when we had to place our order. So that's the beverage that will be in the lunch packet for those particular situations. For daycare, what we've worked out, I was corrected, before and after school care.
I did it quietly.
We're taking the gym area, and if my school's in the afternoon, parents have the option to drop them off at the gym for the morning session at the elementary level, and then in the afternoon, you also have the option to leave your kids in the afternoon. This also is available for the staff. So for those folks that are used to the shuttle service to another school, you do have that program available. And if it works out like we think we will before Monday, we don't think some of this is going to cost you anything. We're waiting on a couple of phone calls for donations. And that sort of leads us to another thing on the middle school option. This will be a new endeavor for the middle school option, but we're having a program that's going to be called Bearcat Cave. And if you know that, that's your two mascots, and the gym at Mount Juliet Middle is actually called the Cave. But that's going to be open for the same deal, but we're going to have different programs that Dr. Angle and Ms. Smith are working out for the teachers to help us in that program, so those middle school kids can come in the morning, or they can come in the afternoon, depending on when they're in school. So we're working.
And that will not preclude, as far as parents that are going to make the adjustment, as far as that, particularly if they are car drivers, that they bring their kids either if they're the morning or the afternoon. That doesn't preclude what they want to do with their children, but we're going to have the option as far as the before and after school programs. But it also gives us an opportunity, because if you'll remember, we're looking at 4-hour sessions, morning and afternoon. It will give us an opportunity, because we will have staff in place to provide intervention, to provide tutorials, and all those enrichment pieces that would be lost because of collapsing down into 4 hours. But here's the assurances I want to give you as well. We're talking about 4 schools that are going to be working together. All 4 are reward schools, exemplary, in the top 5% in the state. Has nothing to do with the building, ladies and gentlemen. It's the staff, it's the teachers that make that happen. So that will not be lost, and I want to give that reassurance to parents as far as what's going to happen to instruction. We have the masters of instruction in those 4 schools, so we're not. That's. I don't want to say it's not a concern, but I know that's not going to be anything that's going to be something that we need to be concerned as far as that it'll be less of or not the quality. It'll be one of those as far as what do we look at as far as time. The other thing that I know, looking at the staff that's in here, state testing comes up in about 3 weeks. Remember what I said the first time I came into this district. I won't even ask for comments. We don't concern ourselves or worry about the state testing. Our kids will do fine. There's conversations going on with the Commissioner of Education, and it's one of those things. What I ask, you provide the very best instruction for our students in that amount of time, and it will be fine. And then the next piece, and I'm sorry this was not on the script, Mr. Hall. Just because the nature of who you are and how much you care as far as What if my outcomes are not good? I'm just voicing what I know is already going in your head. This is a traumatic event. There's a lot of stress involved. Folks, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. You don't worry about that. I want you to love on the kids. I want you to nurture them. I want you to be sensitive that they have probably witnessed, experienced something. Even if they didn't lose their home, the trauma of a tornado, I've done a lot of research over the last several days, not only is internalized, but children pick up on what they hear adults around them speaking of, what they're seeing on television. And it doesn't matter if they're 5 years old or if they're 18. We need to be sensitive to that. And so that's the other thing that we're going to be also concerned with as far as getting some counseling in here as well, for you and also for our children. So again, there's a lot of components and elements to all this. Be patient with us because we've got to get all those pieces in it. And all I ask, love your kids, hold on to them tight. And I think the name of that book is Teach Like Your Hair's on Fire. Because that's what the kids need. They need that normalcy. They need the thing that, again, as that little girl said, I need my teacher.
Our goal for parents as well as students and our teachers, our goal is when Monday happens, you may be in a different location if you're from Stoner Creek or West Wilson. But our goal is to have everything as normal as we can make it on that day. We're working with our textbook company. We're working with Dell Computers, who has our contract. A lot of people from across the country, which makes me feel better about this country, the way we've been reached out to, and I know they do it in a lot of events. But we want to have as many of your books and things in there in that school when you get there. So we're going to work through that process. And the other thing we need to stress to everyone right now, this plan that we're just rolled out, this is going to get us to May 21st, the last day of school. Before we get out of school, we're going to let you know what the future looks like, because this is not a $5,000 or $10,000 claim for us, for our insurance company. Okay? This is going to be some discussions that we will have with them over the next several months. We have to have a lot of architects, engineers, and inspectors involved in this process. But our goal is, and we've already told them, we have to have some answers, hopefully before May 1st, because we want to be able to reassure that everything's going to occur and how it's going to occur. One rumor that we do want to put out, Stoner Creek and West Wilson is not going anywhere. They're going to be here for a long time. Okay? So we will, that's not going to happen where everybody's going to go.
And let me add to that. There was a rumor circulating within 2 days that we would be terminating the teachers at Stoner Creek and West Wilson Middle School, because with no buildings, why would we need teachers? That was the most ludicrous, most cruel rumor, and I'm seeing some nods because you heard it too, and several of you called me, and I believe Beverly Sharp heard it as well. Why anyone would even do that? So some of you that still have doubts in your mind, no. That was a cruel, cruel rumor.
So when we get to Monday the 16th, again, we're asking for patience as we work through the process, especially in that midday term. The morning's going to be okay. It's that midday situation where we transfer one school out and one in. That's going to be the critical point in this whole process. We think we've got everything else in place. So things going on behind the scenes is our technology department's having to do a lot of stuff to row 2 staffs to one building, and our maintenance staff is doing things. The administration of both schools are working tirelessly to make this work. They'll be contacting each staff to let them know they're wanting to try to do a walkthrough at the end of the week. So they'll contact you all on how they want to do that and how that works. The other thing is, and Dr. Wright or Bart 1 mentioned this earlier, there's going to be two Google opportunities out on this PowerPoint. One's going to be for staff, and you'll use your IDs and stuff to get into it to post questions. And then there's going to be one for the public. And we will go through all those questions and answer them. As soon as we get them, and as we get them, it will be updated continuously. So
Address this right here too.
for the parents that are out there, because we do have some calls from them, we'll work with the staff here in a minute on their questions and concerns. But if there's things that your children are saying were left in the building or whatever, we're asking you to email your administrator on those items. One of the things that everybody has to understand, what happened is these buildings imploded and they exploded in this event. So even though you see a picture, does not mean the building is safe. And it does not mean it's contaminated because it's got a roof on it. There's a lot of things from heat and air, gas lines, freon, all kinds of things, chemicals when these buildings were built that have moved in this building. So if something is contaminated, it's contaminated and it'll be thrown away appropriately. If it can be salvaged, we will do our best to do that, but we can't make any guarantees on that because I don't know how to tell you, but from what I went through at my house, when this thing happens, you see a lot of things you've never seen before, and things move that's never moved before. But again, with the way this happened and the amount of water that was in the entire building, both buildings, it took a tremendous amount of water. I think when maintenance first got in, it was like 6 to 8 inches of water in these buildings. That's a lot of water around the buildings. So from the public standpoint on the offerings of things you could do for us, that's one of the reasons our insurance company has a company that comes in to take care of those kinds of things because of the contamination. So our insurance company is taking care of what we can salvage and what we can't. And then we will make that available as we get the items out of the buildings if they're salvageable. But again, for the public, if you email the principals or assistant principals, they'll get that information to us and we will work to see if we can find the items to do that. And then we will talk with the staff here in just a second.
And spring sports and Chuck Whitlock.
Spring sports, again, Dr. Angle and Ms. Sharp are working hard on that. Chuck Whitlock, our athletic director, is coordinating that with the coaches, but a lot of the activities will occur on Mount Juliet Middle's campus, both West Wilson and Mount Juliet Middle. Of course, a couple of the games they play each other, so that won't be those will be easy games. But the rest of the schedule to coordinate it will be a little tough, but they'll get through that. Mount Juliet High School, Ms. Rainey and the staff here, if we need to use this site for any of the athletic events, we will do that as well. Mount Juliet Christian, we asked them to reach out to Watertown High School if they needed some assistance with their athletic programs at Mount Juliet Christian. So a lot of things will start to come together once everybody sort of gets settled and the shock is over. So we think we've got almost everything covered. There's probably something that's going to slip through the cracks that we didn't think of, but a lot of people have thought, and we've asked them to think about things that we've missed. And so
No, I think that was it.
So we're going to turn it back over to Bart. Again, if you do have questions, look at the end of this when this goes out on the site, and there's going to be a Google place to do that, and then we'll take care of those questions and answers. So.
And the one thing I would add too, because again, remember I said that there will be a lot of questions that will come in that will be duplicated, but we'll consolidate and answer. But there's going to be some singular questions that you need a response. Get it in there. Again, it's going to be a few eyes that will be looking at it. But I know that some of the questions that I've taken in the last several days that have been very personal, and I understand that. But again, reach out to us. We will get a response to you. And I know that some of you have even qualified that some of your questions as far as, I know this might sound silly, but not when it's impacted you. So please reach out to us. We'll do the very best that we can.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wright and Mickey, for that presentation. You know, the plan that's been rolled out here, you know, there's a phrase that's been said all last week and throughout this, you know, following this tragedy, and it's been stronger together. And you can tell that after this plan, that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take. I've heard people say, how can we help? What can we do? Whatever it takes. Well, that's the mentality of this plan, and but we're all in this together. And so thank you so much for providing that information to everyone today.